Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the most stress-inducing levels, fights, and other moments across the Legend of Zelda series. But before we dive in, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Hot Delivery: The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. In Twilight Princess, Link can eventually complete a multi-step quest in order to open a Mallow Mart shop near Hyrule Castle, where he can buy the magic armor. One of those steps provides one of the more stressful moments of the game because it makes Link entirely defenseless. At a certain point, Link will have to carry a barrel of hot spring water across Hyrule Field. It's much easier if he sticks to the edge of the map, but most of us didn't know that back then. Trying to dodge enemies who are all too eager to break that barrel open and force you to start over is more stressful than you might think. The first big octo: The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Several Zelda games have large, overworld mini-bosses that can be pretty surprising to stumble upon for the first time. The Wind Waker has the big octos, giant squid-like beasts that pull you into a whirlpool that can only be escaped by shooting out each of its eyes, of which there are 4, 8, or 12. Admittedly, knowing how to beat them isn't hard. Still, our first time getting trapped by one of these as kids was a shock, with the thumping soundtrack and climactic storm only adding to the moment. And if you weren't quick enough, you might just get swallowed up. Gerudo Fortress: The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The series holds several stealth sections, though few are as memorable as the first in Ocarina of Time. Link must sneak around the Gerudo Fortress, rescuing the 4 kidnapped carpenters. Of course, prowling the grounds are groups of the Gerudo, who catch Link as soon as they see him and toss him into a cell. The only ones who don't are the elite warriors who confront Link outside each carpenter's cell, and who have an attack that can knock Link out instantly, where he once again is thrown into the same cell. These days, the path to free each prisoner is easy to remember, but it stressed our tiny, fragile minds out back in the day. Snowboarding against Yeta: The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Out of the most infamous minigames in the Zelda series, of which there are quite a few, not many get our blood boiling as quickly as snowboarding in Twilight Princess. Link's first race against Yeto is easy, but his wife Yeta is a pro. She knows the exact best path to take down the mountain, shortcuts and all. She will make every turn and jump flawlessly, and she will do it all with impressive speed. That means, to beat her and get a piece of heart, you have to do the same, and somehow be quicker. That's naturally a recipe for you to make lots of mistakes, crashing into trees and walls, and taking multiple falls into the ravine below. Any horse riding minigame. Some of the hardest minigames across the series are timed trials that require you to be on the back of a horse. They're also some of the most frequently frustrating challenges in any entry that bring us nothing but stress over some trinket. Just like how it's stressful to shoot at targets from Epona's back at the Gerudo Fortress in Ocarina of Time, it's also a pain getting through all of those obstacle courses in Echoes of Wisdom. Breath of the Wild brought horseback trauma to players on a wider scale, and both types with an annoying obstacle course and an irritating archery challenge. All just for some cosmetic horse gear too. Getting lost in the Water Temple. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. In hindsight, there are far worse dungeons in the series than the Water Temple, but it has a reputation for a reason. Being constantly forced to pause in order to equip the iron boots, a confusing layout especially when trying to backtrack to a spot that changes the water level, a specific, easily overlooked small key. Those talking points have been beaten to death. But it's because of those very same points that the Water Temple has become this shared experience among so many of us, and clearly a negative one. In the days before all answers were readily available at your fingertips, getting lost in the Water Temple was like this horrendous rite of passage. Navigating Death Mountain. Zelda II: The Adventure of Link. Another area that is infamously challenging to navigate is Death Mountain from Zelda II. This comes fairly early on, but serves as a huge difficulty spike in a game that is well known for being pretty hard. What makes it such a nuisance is that it's basically a maze of interconnected caves and tunnels that are not only extremely easy to get turned around in, but which are also full of tough enemies. And you have to make your way through it all to get the hammer, a required item. Most Zelda fans don't care for The Adventure of Link due to how overly difficult it is, and Death Mountain is a great representation of that. Rescuing Midna, The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. There are several moments that make Zant stand out among other Zelda villains, a key one being when he nearly kills your companion, Midna. With her life almost drained and Link forced back into his wolf form, he races through a stormy night towards the only person who can possibly help, Zelda. The music and atmosphere do a lot to fill this sequence with dread, and it isn't as if interruptions from enemies in Hyrule Field and the sewers, or Giovanni and the introduction of Pose, do anything to help matters. Although she was never in real danger, our connection to her and the cinematic presentation made us feel actual tension as we rushed to save her. Encountering a king. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Coming across any Gleeok early on in Tears of the Kingdom, you're bound to feel at least a little intimidated. It is a three-headed elemental dragon, after all. But as you learn recipes and collect armor to deal with the elements, you might start to feel more comfortable. That is, until the moment you find out that King Gleeoks exist. These overworld mini-bosses have access to fire, ice, and electric attacks, meaning it's nearly impossible to be well defended against all of it. The moment we realized a creature of this magnitude existed in the game, it was already too late. Your first Lynel. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Just like how Tears of the Kingdom breathed new life into an old enemy with Gleeoks, so too did Breath of the Wild with Lynels. The modern variation is by far the most powerful, and we'll never forget trying to fight one for the first time. Extremely high durability, impressive speed, and a wide range of attacks to combat different playstyles. No matter where you were during your initial playthrough, and even if you were victorious, none of us were ready for the hardy fights that Lynel's would put up. They're also some of the enemies that scale in power as Link grows stronger, ensuring that we always approach them with caution, no matter what. Extending the health bar. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
And the birth of his new world.
There's a certain tension in the air as you head towards the climax in Tears of the Kingdom, something that tells you that this confrontation with Ganondorf will be special. And it is an incredible fight. But there's one moment, small but impactful, that almost makes you feel like you aren't prepared for what's coming, even if you probably are. As the second phase begins, Ganondorf transforms and naturally refills his health bar. But as it reaches the end, the bar itself extends all the way to the other side of the screen, essentially doubling in size. It's a great trick on the player, a fun, unexpected way to signal Ganondorf's power.
You'll be taking far more than you're on this time.
Moldorm, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past introduced a lot of great elements to the series, but one of the worst things it gave us is Moldorm. The boss of the third dungeon is a giant worm whose weak point is its tail. It slithers around its arena, bumping into you, and while it can be tricky to land your hits, the worst part is the lack of barriers and the hole in the middle of the floor. Too many of us have been knocked right off this platform, forced to re-climb our way up the tower to face Moldorm again, where all of its health will have returned. That moment when you're right along the edge, about to fall, is both memorable and terrible. Level 9, The Legend of Zelda. This might be cheating since it's a whole dungeon instead of a moment, but it's also true that the first time you encounter the final dungeon in the original game, you feel stressed out up until the very end. There are nearly 60 rooms to move through, which is both insane and impressive for an NES game. Plus, every single one of them is packed with strong enemies in some really annoying combinations too. Level 9 is a true test of skill specifically designed to overwhelm you, and while plenty of die-hard fans have mastered it multiple times, there's nothing like trying to overcome it for your first time. The Great Palace, Zelda II: The Adventure of Link. In a similar vein to the original game's Level 9, you have the Great Palace of Zelda II, and since it's probably the hardest dungeon in the entire series, it most certainly deserves to be here. Extremely tough enemies, a confusing design that causes a lot of backtracking, and 2 bosses for the price of 1. It was a major endeavor at release, and that has only grown more true over the years as we've all been softened by quality of life advancements. And if you'd really like us to single out a specific moment, we'll go with getting cornered by a Faka. These are some of the most intimidating enemies in the franchise, and they only appear here. Hyrule Castle Descent, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. After you defeat Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time, his tower begins to collapse. You're given a timer of 3 minutes and told to flee as everything comes crashing down. As it turns out, 3 minutes is plenty of time. but it still creates this definite sense of urgency, which is especially palpable whenever Zelda becomes trapped and enemies jump out to fight you. Nintendo even put a ReDead on a bridge close to the exit to really make you sweat. This was a standout stressful moment for anyone who played this as a kid, as anything with a timer will naturally make failure a much more real threat. The Imprisoned, Round 3. The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Pretty much everyone who has played Skyward Sword has complained about the fights against the Imprisoned. Only natural, they're not fun. But the third time you face it does come with a moment of significant anxiety. At a certain point, the Imprisoned will start to fly up towards the sealed temple rather than walk, and you have to swap to Groose so he can knock it down by catapulting a bomb towards it. But when it starts flying again, Groose finds his bomb stash is blocked, and Link must make it up to him so he can be catapulted onto the Imprisoned's back. If you don't do it fast enough, that's game over. As the boss continues to rise and you struggle with making it to Groose in time, you'll definitely feel the pressure. Wallmasters and Floormasters. Some of the most commonly occurring enemies, and therefore sources of stress, in the series are the Wallmasters and Floormasters. Their appearance may change slightly between games, but they're always big, disembodied hands that'll grab hold of Link and teleport him back to the beginning of a section, or the entire dungeon. Seeing a shadow appear above Link is sure to set off alarm bells in your head. No matter what it is you're doing, avoiding these creatures becomes a top priority. Even when you see them walking around a room, you're still instantly put on edge, because being forced to backtrack after failing to dodge them is truly terrible. Dead Hand, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Just at the mention of its name, you can send an entire player base back to the terrifying moment of being confronted by this thing beneath Kakariko Village. The bottom of the well is already, let's say, alarming, but then you face its boss, a pale, gangly, blood-stained monstrosity with a giant, disturbing smile. Even though it's horror-themed, the mini-dungeon does nothing to prepare you for something like this. Its multitude of arms latch on to Link, keeping him immobile as the dead hand slowly drifts towards him to take a bite out of him. The stress we felt during this moment left a huge impression, a major one in a game full of them. The Aliens, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. On the first night of Majora's Mask, Link can attempt to save Romani Ranch from a group of what appear to be aliens. While you can slow their movement using the inverted Song of Time, that doesn't completely take away the tension. On replays, this moment isn't too bad, but when you do it for the first time, it's one of the most stressful moments in the game. The fact that you need to refill your quiver of arrows, and that the aliens approach the barn from multiple directions, including behind it, makes this a tense mission. Failing to stop them leads to Romani being abducted, and to you feeling really badly about it. Chased by Zant's Hands. The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Any enemy that can't be killed and slowly creeps towards you is bound to cause some unease. In the Palace of Twilight, you have Zant's hands. These large stone appendages will start pursuing Link as soon as he picks up a soul, a light-giving orb he needs to progress through the dungeon. You have to put the soul down at certain points to get through obstacles, and while you can stun Zant's hands, they solely exist to get the soul back from you and will only stop once you've made it out of their area. With Zant's hands, it's a very classic sense of dread, amplified by the incredibly unsettling music that accompanies them. Being spotted by a ReDead. This one's a downright classic, one that longtime players can absolutely relate to. Introduced in Ocarina of Time, ReDeads are essentially zombies with the very aggravating ability to freeze Link in place with their horrifying shriek. For a few moments, there's nothing you can do but watch as they slowly lumber towards you. And should they reach you before Link snaps out of it, they'll grab hold and start chomping on his head. The scariest version of ReDeads, surprisingly, is found in the Wind Waker, with gigantic heads and glowing red eyes. But no matter what game you're playing, not being able to move or react as the risk of damage creeps your way is bound to stress you out. Chased by Phantoms. The Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. There are many reasons most of us don't enjoy the Temple of the Ocean King from Phantom Hourglass. The Phantoms play a big part in that. These enemies are immune to most types of damage and can knock Link out in a single hit, making you start a room over. There are certain safe spots where they can't attack Link, so every time one spots you and gives chase, you have to run for your dear life, which is naturally stressful. Worse, if they hit you, they steal some of your precious time from the hourglass, which is keeping you alive while you're inside. Thankfully, there is no hourglass mechanic in Spirit Tracks. Still, getting chased by a phantom with no way to defend yourself is harrowing. The Escort Mission. The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. After Link reconnects with a temporarily amnesiac Ilia and meets Resistance leader Telma, he volunteers to escort them and a sick Zora prince to Kakariko Village. Now, escort missions have come a long way in video games, but this is one of the worst parts of Twilight Princess due to how aggravating it can be. Because, of course, it isn't a simple ride through Hyrule Field. The King Bulbin mini-boss fight isn't too bad, but afterwards, their wagon is swarmed by an endless supply of fire arrow shooting enemies and Kargaroks, massive birds that can be hard to lock onto. It's a pretty lengthy ride, and Link must use the Gale Boomerang to put out fires on the wagon, which does have a health bar. If the wagon is attacked at specific spots, it will go off the set path before it circles back, making the whole process take longer and putting you at greater risk of failing. Running out of time. The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. One of the more intimidating aspects of Majora's Mask is its 3-day time loop. Normally, I'd say it isn't that bad. You gain the ability to slow down time early on, and so long as you take certain precautions, like only starting dungeons at the beginning of a loop, you'll probably be safe from running out of time and losing progress. However, I've also played this game dozens of times, and I can still remember what it was like being in a dungeon or in the middle of a quest as the clock ticked down on the final day, and feeling the tension set in as I was lost on what to do. While restarting the loop means you keep certain marks of progression, like items, you have to re-navigate certain areas if you don't complete your task. It's better than the alternative though. If the moon crashes down, all of your progress on that loop is erased, even items. Your first Guardian Stalker, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Although they were shown in pre-release marketing, there's nothing quite like coming across your first Guardian Stalker in Breath of the Wild. Hell, make that your first several, because it takes a while before Link has the materials necessary to defeat them. These laser-shooting spider tanks are absolute powerhouses, able to deplete your health immediately. And because they're so fast, they have no issue chasing you across the landscape before delivering a humiliating game over. Naturally, they're accompanied by some of the most stressful music in the series as well, and God forbid you come across a pair of them early on. You may as well just warp to safety then and there. The Gloom Spawn, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. While the Guardian Stalkers were shown in the trailers, these groups of nightmarish hands in Tears of the Kingdom were not. We all shared the same "oh dear God" feeling during our first encounter with them, watching them swiftly glide across the ground towards us before grabbing hold of Link and sucking the life from him. Once they have hold of you, it's incredibly hard to break free, and as you watch Link's health disappear, it's hard not to get stressed. Just like the Guardians, once we knew how to deal with the Gloom Spawn, they weren't so bad. Still, I'm sure we were all discouraged to learn after killing them for the first time that they spawn a Phantom Ganon, a nasty little surprise and source for more stress. Sakon's Hideout, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Anju and Cafe's side quest is one of the most rewarding in the entire series, but it can also make you incredibly anxious since, due to the aforementioned time loop, if you miss an important moment, you have to start the whole thing over. This reaches peak tension during one of its final moments, when Link must help Cafe navigate the hideout of the thief Sakon. This happens late on the third day, so there's already some stress there. Cafe's mask is placed on a conveyor belt leading to a hole, and the duo works through different rooms to reach the end before it falls. Where Link faces enemies, Cafe pushes blocks onto switches to open doors. However, yellow switches slow down the conveyor belt, and red ones speed it up. Obviously, this place is built to stress you out, and failing means Cafe is trapped and the quest line is doomed. It was, and will always be, a horrible sense of failure to experience. The Trial of the Sword. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. There have been several combat trials across the series, but none of them have been as challenging or stressful as the Trial of the Sword. Added in Breath of the Wild's DLC, it tasks you with making it through 3 groups of combat encounters, each ranging in difficulty and number of rooms. The only thing is, Link only has access to his Sheikah Slate and however many hearts you've gained. No champion abilities, no armor, no food, and no weapons, though you will collect things as you go. The beginning trials aren't too bad, but every player will reach a point where it becomes too much for them to handle, and once you die, you'll have to start whatever set of trials you're on over. The threat of imminent defeat as your collected supplies run out is agonizing to say the least. Getting a game over. Zelda II: The Adventure of Link. No one ever wants to get a game over in any game, and as that threat looms closer, it's bound to cause you a bit of stress. However, in Zelda II, losing your health and all of your lives is utterly demoralizing. Doing so restarts Link at the North Castle. Depending on where you were, this can make backtracking across a famously hard game even more of a chore. The exception is if you get a game over in the final level, the Great Palace, which just places you at its entrance. However, the bigger issue is that it also resets your experience bar to 0, forcing you to refill it. So, being surrounded by enemies on your last life obviously causes some emotional strain. It's even worse in the Japanese version, which lowers 2 of Link's 3 stats to the level of his lowest one. Ugh. The Silent Realms. The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. There's something special about the stress caused by the Silent Realms in Skyward Sword, and by special, I mean absolutely hellish. There are 4 of these in the game, each of which takes away all of Link's items. He must collect 15 sacred tears scattered around each area before he's allowed to leave. But if he's spotted by a watcher's lantern, dips even a toe into waking water, or runs out of time between collecting another tear, the realm's guardians awake. These will hunt Link down as you scramble to find another tear to put them back to sleep. But if they hit you before you do, the whole thing starts over. Everyone who has played Skyward Sword has been scarred by the Silent Realms. They more than serve their purpose, though. There's nothing more anxiety-inducing than being chased by these behemoths as you desperately search for salvation. What other moments from the series stressed you out? Share your memories in the comments, and we will see you next time.